The number came up on my panel at 0614 station time, while the bay was still dark and the morning shift hadn't finished their coffee. I almost missed it. KV7 was a routine pull, one of the relay buoys the Karath Depth Conservancy had asked us to catalog after the zone survey. Handoff, and routine pulls don't usually carry anything worth sitting up for. Depth drag coefficient, hull surface temp, signal integrity. Same 8 columns every time. The 9th column was the anomaly flag. I clicked it. The system opened a sub-report. It said, unknown surface inscription, interior hull face, sector 4 panel, dimensions 4.1 centimeters by 1.8 centimeters, depth reading encoded, 41 fathoms. I pulled the buoy photo. 30 seconds loading on the Conservancy's network, which runs on patience and old hardware. When it resolved, I was looking at the underside of the up access hatch, interior face, where the insulation foam had been scraped back. Someone had cut into the bare alloy. The numbers were clear, not stamped, not printed. Cut. The kind of mark you make when you have time and something sharp and nowhere urgent to be. 41 fathoms. I sat with that for a moment. KV7 had been deployed 14 months ago. The Conservancy's own records had it assembled at the Orvik fabrication dock, sealed, shipped, dropped. Nobody opens the access hatch during shipping. Nobody carves measurements into the interior hull face during fabrication. That would show up in the QC scan. The mark was not there when the buoy left the dock. The mark was not there when the buoy was deployed. That left the 11 years prior to deployment when the alloy panels were in raw storage. I flagged it to Senior Assessor Dravok. He replied inside 20 minutes, which meant he'd been at his desk since before I arrived. His message was 3 lines. He said, "The inscription is likely a tooling artifact from the fabrication process, mislabeled by the anomaly flag as post-production." He said, "Depth reading is coincidentally close to the zone shelf measurement and should not be treated as meaningful." He said, "Please proceed with the standard catalog." I read the message twice. Then I went back to the sub-report. 41 fathoms is the precise depth of the Orvik shelf. The shelf is the reason we're out here. It's the geological ledge that separates the first survey zone from the deep zone, where the Conservancy's instruments stop working cleanly, and readings get strange. They've been trying to accurately measure that shelf for 6 years. Their best figure, as of the last zone report I'd read, 41 fathoms plus or minus 3. The markus on key C7 did not say 41 fathoms plus or minus 3. It said 41 fathoms. I wrote back to Dravok. I said, "Understood." I said, "I'll proceed with the standard catalog." I did not say, "Going to pull the sub-reports on KV9, KV12, and KV17 before I do anything else." KV9 came back in 40 seconds. Same anomaly flag. Opened it. Interior hull face, sector 2 panel. Insulation foam scraped back. Same glyph weight. The lines cut to roughly the same depth, at roughly the same angle, suggesting the same tool or the same hand. Depth reading, 1 fathoms. I pulled the deployment record for KV9. It had been sealed at a different fabrication dock, on a different station, 8 months before KV7. Different dock, different assembly crew, different QC officer. The alloy panels had come from a third source entirely. Same mark. I didn't send another message to Dravok. I pulled KV12. KV12 was older. Deployed 3 years ago, which put it in the water before the Conservancy had an accurate shelf measurement at all. Their figure at that point was 44 fathoms, provisional, because they'd only done 2 passes. The mark on KV12's interior hull face said 41 fathoms, not 44. Not 44 provisional, 41 exact. 3 years before the Conservancy got there with instruments clean enough to confirm it. I got up and walked to the viewport. The bay outside was daylit. The station's arc panels running at full noon output. Everything sharp and pale and shadowless. The survey vessel Verathon 2 was visible through the upper port, running its morning calibration passes over the zone. I watched it for a while. Conservancy vessel, built for patience, built for method. The Karath are methodical in ways that make our own record-keeping look approximate. They do not make errors of measurement. They do not stamp wrong numbers into hull alloy and call it coincidence. Whatever had left the marks was not Karath. I went back to my panel and pulled KV17. The anomaly flag was already lit. I'd somehow known it would be. Interior hull face, same sector, same glyph weight, same angle. Depth reading, 41 fathoms. KV-17 had been deployed 4.5 years ago, which made it the oldest buoy in the zone survey set. Put all 4 marks across a span of deployment. Dates ranging from 4 and Fathoms to 14 months ago. 4 different fabrication facilities, with 4 different assembly crews and QC records. No overlap in personnel. No overlap in material sourcing. One overlap the number. I sat for a long time. The bay was warming up as the shift filled in around me. The sound of chairs. The sound of Dravak's junior analyst arriving and setting her bag down 3 stations over. The ordinary sounds of a cataloging station, doing cataloging work on what the Conservancy had already decided was a routine zone. I opened the Master Buoy Index. The zone survey had deployed 18 buoys in total. I had pulled 4. I had 14 left. I did not pull all 14. I pulled one. KV-22, which was the most recently deployed, installed 7 weeks ago, deepest in the zone, positioned directly above the Orville shelf. At the point the Conservancy considered the measurement anchor for all other readings. The anomaly flag was lit. I opened the sub-report. Interior hull face, Sector 4 panel. I pulled the photo. The mark was there. Same glyph weight, same angle, same clean lines, 41 fathoms. But KV-22's mark was different from the others in one respect. The others had been single inscriptions. The number, nothing below it, sealed when the hatch was closed and left. KV-22 had additional marks below the primary inscription. They were smaller, the same tool to running shallower, as though added with care rather than intention. I had to enhance the image to read them clearly. They were tick marks. A running count, the kind you make when you are keeping track of something over time. I counted them against the scale bar. 22, the photo down, and thought about the 14 remaining buoys I hadn't pulled yet. I thought about what I was going to write in my report. The Conservancy would want a clean file. Dravak had made that clear. Unexplained pre-contact inscription, sealed, no further action recommended, seed with standard catalog. That would satisfy the quarterly review. That would close the zone file. I wrote the report, filed it exactly as Dravak had directed. 4 buoys reviewed, anomaly flagged on each, inscription typed as tooling artifact pending further review. Depth reading treated as coincidental. Standard language. The kind of language that gets a file stamped and shelved. I did not include KV-22 in the report. I saved the KV-22 subreport personal partition, encrypted under my own key. I saved the tickmark photograph separately. I looked at it one more time before I closed the folder. 22 marks. I had no idea what was being counted. Whatever was making them, patient, exact, already down there at 40 fathoms for years before we ever arrived, was still adding to the tally. I went back to the standard catalog and kept working. When Dravak passed my station at midday, he nodded at my screen, saw the queue moving, said nothing. The junior analyst across from me was eating a late breakfast and arguing with someone on comms about the calibration schedule. The arc panels ran their noon cycle and the bay stayed bright and ordinary and completely indifferent to what I had decided not to say. I did not pull the other 14 buoys that week. I have not pulled them yet. I keep the partition key written on a slip of paper in my desk drawer. Some mornings I take it out and look at it and put it back. The zone file is stamped and shelved. The Conservancy's quarterly review accepted it without comment. Dravak signed off. Nobody has gone back to the zone with intent to open hatches. 41 fathoms. Exact. Patient. Old enough to have known the answer before anyone thought to ask the question. I don't know what the count of 22 means. I don't know if it's gone up. I think about it on the long shifts, when the bay is quiet, and the arc panels are running low, and the only sound is the hum of the equipment doing what equipment does, counting, recording, keeping track of the ordinary accumulation of time. Is down there, has been doing the same thing for longer than we've been out here. I left the partition locked and the drawer closed, and I went back to work.